to BORZOI Cast, a show about culture and the context of history, philosophy, and economy. My name is Arvi.
And I'm Alina.
And today we're going to talk about Pluribus. Not just Pluribus, I guess Pluribus, Body Snatchers, Pot People, the sort of this trope in media. I want to talk about System Shock as well, a lot of different things.
We were talking recently with you about whether it's possible or not to like the entirety of filmography of a certain director. I think Vince Gilligan is one of the closest who came to absolute liking or mostly liking. I did watch Breaking Bad. I would say like it was good for me. What's the impression of Better Call Saul then?
I love Better Call Saul. I feel like this is one of the very, very few shows that I actually rewatched in its entirety.
Wow.
Yeah, and I did not like it at first. I dropped it after season 1. It was too slow.
It was. I did not like it as well.
Yeah, but then I decided to get back into it when it was sort of finishing. And starting from season 2 and like onwards, I think it gets better and better and better. And I genuinely feel like it's an amazing piece of drama. I don't know how, like it's a piece of art and it's amazing.
Talking about Pluribus, which is the recent work of Vince Gilligan as a TV series, it was our collective decision that it's better for me not to watch it. And I think to describe the reason, we should start with the type of story it is, which I would say traces back to the Body Snatchers franchise.
I wouldn't call it a franchise personally. I would say it's more like a type of story.
Yeah, right.
So we watched the Invasion of Body Snatchers from 1955, right?
Honestly, watching it right now, it was kind of cozy. It was very like slow paced, slow burner. It
Very
was
small
nice.
scale too.
Yeah. It was nice.
Yeah, it was nice. The cinematography was very cozy. It's very quaint, indeed.
And then we watched
the remake in 1978 remake with Donald Sutherland, The Invasion of Body Snatchers. There's this 1955 movie, 1978 movie.
One of the reasons that I wanted to watch the remake was because it was shot in San Francisco. And
Right.
I was very interested in, like, I was on a spree of just watching movies that were shot in cities that I liked. And so I was horrified when I watched the movie. And ever since that day, I believe this is one of my worst nightmares that resembles exactly this storyline.
When going into Pluribus, they were very, how to say it, secretive before the premiere dropped. It was very difficult to figure out what the show is going to be about from the promotional material.
It was actually surprising for me that they chose this, even though I think the movie from the 1970s, it was pretty strong. Like even watching it in 2020s, it's still pretty strong. Like it's very intense. It is like borderline horror. I think we could call it a horror.
No, it's
it's
a horror
just
movie,
like
yeah.
the thriller aspect is up to 11. And then there was like the 1990s.
Yeah, I think
another
it was
one.
1992 or 1990. This was a remake called It wasn't really a remake. This was more like a reimagining called Body Snatchers, right?
Yeah, and most of the movie happens on the military base.
Yes.
And even though I think you could tell it was pretty cheap in terms of the budget, there are a couple of shots that I think are really good when they work with lighting and stuff. So it was also like there was a lot of atmosphere in there. And I really liked the acting, despite also coming off a bit on the cheap hand. But yeah.
It was interesting. I think the director of the 90s remake, Abel Ferreira,
Question mark.
Yeah, I don't remember how to pronounce the director's name. It was a quite atypical movie for him because mostly what I know from his filmography are crime films and dramas, and King of New York with Christopher Walken was one of his movies around the same time. Also with young Giancarlo Esposito in it, which is a link between this and Breaking Bad. So this was like a very out of the left field kind of movie for him, it seems like. But yeah, also dealing with the question of paranoia, breaking of trust, breaking of safety. Like you cannot feel safe. You feel violated because your autonomy is violated and stuff like that, right? And then we watched The Faculty, Robert Rodriguez.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can also attribute it to this kind of unofficial franchise.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Like, and it's a very interesting. Like, oh yeah, it's a, like at some point this seemed new and fresh. Originally, it was a book, right? The
Faculty?
No, The Invasion of Body Snatchers.
Oh, okay.
It was a book. It was adapted to screen, right, in the 50s. It reads very much and it looks very much like an height of Red Scare 1950s anti-communist propaganda, right? It is very much about like these weird people. They're all the same. They wear the same. They're emotionless. They're very effective, but they're here
And
to
they're spreading.
They're spreading, and like even your neighbor can be a communist. I mean, an alien invader.
Right.
You know what I mean? That kind of story tapped into that kind of paranoia there, and I think in 1970s there also was a kind of paranoia and lack of trust, but mostly related to very dire economic state in the US at the time, political crisis with Watergate, again, various different conspiracy theories, not unfounded, by the way, but they start to rise around the same time, right, with all these different government secrets, and who can you really trust if you cannot trust your appointed representatives, you know what I mean?
Right.
And then I feel like the further you get away from the original, and these are not the only types, there's also like Host from Stephanie Meyer, right, from the Twilight author. There was this movie about body snatchers in like 2000s.
What?
Yeah. The I think that was like a young adult take on the body snatchers. Something that, I know this was like post Twilight.
Huh. Okay.
Kind of
Never
thing.
heard about it.
Yeah. I think it was called The Host. And also around this, also in 2000s, there was another take on this type of story with Nicole Kidman and Daniel Craig. I think it was called Invasion, just Invasion, right? So, you had Invasion of the Body Snatchers, Invasion.
Invasion, it makes sense.
And now, over time, this just became a type of story, almost like a cliche. Just, this is a setting in which we're putting our characters. And
yeah, it's us versus them. Survival, surveillance. What else would you say are the critical points?
Lack of trust. I would say actually The Thing, John Carpenter's The Thing, kind of taps into the same.
I think it's spot on, but it feels different.
It feels different. Well, because the monster, so to speak, is different. I think in most of these adaptations of this kind of story, the actual how does the monster look? Is it like a plant person or whatever? It doesn't really matter, right?
Yeah.
In The Thing, you see the thing morphing and changing and doing stuff. It works slightly different, and it also cannot supplant everyone.
Yeah, so there's us versus it, but
Yes.
not us versus them, and so you cannot be outnumbered.
And that's how sort of you cannot make a comparison between The Thing and an ideology. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
Like The Thing doesn't represent communism or whatever, whereas the pod people,
I think it's a much more biological conflict.
Yeah.
In comparison to the other body snatchers, even though technically it is biological, because usually it's like alien species coming to Earth and taking the bodies, but at the same time it's much more ideological, in fact.
And I think Pluribus is the same, right?
How can we talk about it, avoiding massive spoilers for people who have not seen it but would like to?
I don't know if we can really.
Well, let's try.
I mean, okay, the purest form. We already spoiled that it is a body snatcher kind of thing, kind of movie.
Yeah, but
right?
it's like happens in the first episode.
Exactly. But that's the thing. When I was starting to watch it, I didn't know anything about this. And for me, like the purest experience was, oh, it is like just discovering that this is a body snatcher kind of movie. But without any super specifics, the Earth receives some sort of transmission from space. The scientists decode this transmission and they find out that this is like a DNA sequence or like a virus sequence. An oopsie whoopsie happens in the lab where they were testing this sequence on rats and stuff, and it starts to contaminate food and then people, and so the world is taken over by this virus that turns all the people into the hive mind.
Okay.
Right? People sort of lose their individuality, or rather they meld all of their individualities into this hive mind, right? We don't actually know what it's called. I don't think it's called anything specifically in the show. And the thing is, they're like our main character, played by Ray Seahorn. She is a writer of romantasy novels, like which they poke fun at how sort of lowbrow and kind of shitty they are. But she is a successful writer, and she is one of the very few on Earth that is not affected by the virus. So everyone around her,
So she's immune.
she's at least at this point, like they don't know why. Yeah. And they try to turn her, and the turning happens through like kissing or, any sort of exchange of bodily fluids or whatever. It's very contagious. They try to do that. They cannot. During this whole process, her lover slash publisher slash business partner, she gets like a stroke. She falls, and unfortunately she dies. Like her consciousness happens to be uploaded into the hive mind, but she herself, the person, is dead, unfortunately.
You know what it reminds me of?
What?
I think we forgot one TV show that falls into this, and this is Battlestar Galactica. Where there you have once you said uploaded, I was like, damn, these are the Cylons. But Cylons were machines, but it's like it is a borderline.
Yes and no, okay. And like it is a complicated matter.
Sorry, let's move on.
Yeah. So long story short, we have this hive mind, and we have these survivors or uninitiated. And the thing is that the hive mind, they have their sort of particular set of rules by which they operate. So unlike the pod people, the body snatchers, the Borg, actually, speaking of TV shows, the Borg from Star Trek, The Next Generation, they assimilate everything around them into this hive mind collective. So unlike all of these freaks, these guys are very helpful. So they want the best to the uninitiated. They're like super pacifists. They cannot kill anyone. They cannot even pick an apple from the tree unless it falls by itself. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, so this is like a very peculiar thing. And there are theories online why this virus operates like that. But now you have Carol, our protagonist, and a bunch of other folks who are scattered all over the globe who are also not infected. And then, 7 billion people acting as a hive mind and trying to negotiate with her. And that's the story. That's the show.
Right. So what does Carol do most of the time?
Okay, so the show, the season 1 is only, I think, 9 episodes, and in Vince Gilligan's style, it's very slow and methodical, right? So we see a lot of things that the characters are doing in full, right? They're performing some sort of process there. Yeah. And so we see the whole journey of Carol through various different, almost like stages of grief, right? Of course, she's in panic. Then she's sort of in denial of this whole situation. She starts to become confrontational with the hive mind. She's like saying it at one point in the early episodes, I saw the movie. Didn't you guys see the movie? Like, that's, we have to fight. Like, she has to save the world. And she sort of starts to gather all this information. But a lot of people online pointed out that she's not super effective with it, right? But I think what they're forgetting is that she's under huge stress. And she's just a writer. Like, ultimately, she is just a writer. And a lot of the times the show pokes fun at how, like, even in her defiant moments when she's saying, like, oh, I can, like, the hive mind offers her food because, they want her to be alive. And she's like, I don't want any food from you. I'm going to feed myself. And in order to feed herself, she goes to where? To the supermarket, right? which is super pointless. She comes to the supermarket. The supermarket is empty because the hive mind are communists. Scratch that. Because the hive mind actually created a much more efficient distribution of resources. They don't need to go to the shop. In fact, they don't need to talk because they know everyone's thoughts at all times because it's like a continuous sort of thing. And so they're like super effective. Why would they need to go to the shop? They have these sort of storages where they keep the food and provision and everything.
So you just go there and take it and you
exactly. Like, everyone knows what everyone needs. They still need to eat. And you know what? And this sort of thing the show presents a lot of tangible benefits to this new way of life, but there are huge, ludicrous handicaps. And one of them being, you lose your individuality, which we'll talk about how necessary is that or not. But yeah, so Carol goes to the supermarket. Supermarket is empty. She gives in, calls the hive mind, could you please restock the supermarket? And the next scene shows how many people you actually need to, bring all the trucks, deliver all the food, stock it, label it, store it everywhere. And like, sort of what I'm thinking, off screen, you have thousands of people, millions of people, working super hard to plant, to gather, these guys, again, they create this sort of very attractive system where there's no misunderstanding, no wars, because it's a single sort of hive mind-ish organism, right? You don't need
you're not going to be at war with yourself.
Yeah. There's end of poverty, end of racism, end of war. But then the story bundles this with these rules like, but also we cannot really pick apples. So at one point, they said that they're not gonna, breed and or hunt for animals because they're pacifists. They cannot kill. And so at one point, they're like, we're gonna most likely starve in 10 years unless we create a technology that can sustain us. And Carol at one point is like, pick a fucking apple. Like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, because you're weirdos. Like, what's up with that? I think the show, unlike the Body Snatchers or the Borg, or recently I played and finished System Shock 2, which also deals with a very similar concept of body snatching, hive minds.
Let's talk about that.
Kind of thing. Yeah. System Shock 2 came out in 1999. It's like an immersive sim, first-person RPG kind of thing. You're stuck on a faster-than-light spaceship that's been captured by the alien organism, worms, virus kind of thing that also do the body-melding hive mind process, right? And this organism refers to itself as the many, and it's sort of through these worms and poisons and various different things. It captures people, sort of melts the flesh into these horrible things and has these eggs. It's like Body Snatchers plus xenomorphs from Alien. It's like, a lot of different influences you can see in that. and it's the major villain of this game. But the other villain that is present here, that is also helping you throughout half of or like most of the runtime of the game, is Shodan. Shodan is the iconic character in gaming. She's a rogue AI with all the safety protocols turned off. And at some point,
Okay.
it became, when full Skynet started to go like full on, or like M for I have no mouth and I must scream, full megalomaniac, hates humans, you're insects, you're all these horrible things. And she tries to eradicate humanity and / or bring it up into the next stage of evolution by mutating and blah, blah, blah. And like, spoilers, but like throughout the game, you find out that the many are not actually aliens. They're products of Shodan biological experimentations that were left adrift in space, and the ship just happened to stumble upon them. So,
Oh, wow.
yeah, that was sort of this whole deal. And so you have this sort of weird metallic dominatrix megalomaniac Shodan, right? And on the other hand, you have this collectivist nightmare, the many, who you hear them throughout the game. Sometimes they're saying things like, "Oh, what is a drop of rain compared to the storm?" Right? Or like the ocean storm, or like you, the player, you cannot comprehend the symphony of flesh, the amusement and the wonder and whatever. They're saying all these things, but then at the same time, while you're walking through the starship, you see all these enemies, right, who are basically zombies, and they cannot control their bodies, right? But they retain some form of their individuality, like way, way deep inside. And so they say things like, "Oh my God," and they're disfigured and weirdly, body horror modified. And they say things like, "Oh, please, somebody kill me. I'm sorry for attacking you," stuff like that. So it's like, it's horrifying. Like, it looks horrible.
Mm-hmm.
It probably feels horrible. Like, whatever the hive mind is actually saying, most likely is either a lie or a very sort of inhumane way of treating what happiness and bliss is, right?
Right.
And so compared to them, the hive mind in Pluribus is, at least it's portrayed as a lot more attractive. They are friendly. They're pacifists. They're not like weirdly mutated chunks of flesh. They look like humans. At one point, the character marks that they even look fuckable, like, because they're people, right? And that's the thing, and that's, I feel like, where the problem sort of lies for me. Just for the record, I really enjoyed the show. So I watched season 1. I enjoyed it. I love the pacing. It has a lot of funny moments, a lot of witty moments. There are interesting characters.
But where does it go?
Exactly. That's the thing. I keep asking myself, where does it go philosophically, right? Because Body Snatchers, all clear, it's a anti-communist propaganda. We cannot, lose our individuality or whatever for the commies. So it's not very deep or not very super duper thought out. When we get to the 90s, it starts, like, the body snatcher archetype, like I said, it starts to become less of a specific idea and more like it's just a trope. It's a setting. It's like a situation where you put your characters for them to do, interesting stuff, and it starts to become like less about meaning and more about pulp and adventure. I do feel like System Shock 2 is about ideas, but in a very sort of clumsy way.
How so?
Judging by what came afterwards, because System Shock is part of the Shock series, right? So System Shock had the spiritual successor in form of BioShock series, which had the same sort of lead writer and
Yeah, hopefully at some point we will also talk about the first BioShock.
Yes, yeah, which is also very interesting. But what we can say now is that the Shock series, starting with 2, usually put like competing ideologies in the narrative. So here's the player and here's the world, and the world presents you with these like big ideas, that is, big competing ideas. And System Shock 2 is quite clumsy about this. It has very cartoonish representation of collectivism or individualism, right? You have Shodan, who's like a crazed authoritarian, I don't know, like it's Skynet basically. And on the other hand, you have the many who possess all the same sort of characteristics of like Body Snatchers and the Borg, but without any benefits, so to speak.
It's like the market of ideas, but both ideas are pretty shitty. What a choice.
Right, and then by the end, the player, of course, has to be an enlightened centrist and just do the most basically reasonable thing, right? Because everyone else is a crazed lunatic. But Pluribus, I'm not sure where it's getting at, right? Because it presents you with this situation, with this Body Snatcher scenario that shows collectivism in somewhat positive way. It sort of shows that if the humanity comes together, it could overcome these global issues, right? We're talking poverty, wars, misunderstandings, But then, like I said, it bundles these successes with very weird rules and conditions. Like, why would you say that in order to end wars and poverty, we need to eradicate individuality from planet Earth? I don't think these come together naturally. I feel like this is like a weird condition.
Again, avoiding massive spoilers, there's at least two protagonists who are still massively or kind of massively opposed to the entire situation they're in. So despite the world being united and I would say reasonably in a better place, they are still trying to revert the situation back.
I wouldn't personally say that the world is in a objectively better place.
Well, not for the protagonists, sure.
Not for the protagonists, but also that's the thing. The loss of individuality is a major handicap. Like, I feel like it's a major downside. And it's a price that didn't need to be paid, you know what I mean? But yeah, there are two people are essentially our main, because there's Carol and then there's Manusos, who's we don't see him in the beginning. He joins the cast a bit later. He's there. He's also very self-sufficient, great character. But also with this character, he's very principled. He's like making a journey from, I think it was Paraguay to Albuquerque, New Mexico, all on his car, right? And every time he needs gas or whatever, he's not asking Hive Mind of anything. He will, siphon the gas out of some parked cars, but then he always leaves money. And that he's trying to be as self-sustainable, self-sufficient as possible. If he needs to take something, he'll pay for it.
Even if there's nobody literally.
Yes, even if there's nobody around. That's the thing, right? He's very principled about this. Like, it's not his, and whatever the situation in the world is right now, it doesn't matter. He has his own stuff. This is not his stuff. He's going to pay for it. At one point, when the Hive sort of offers him some help to, cover some dangerous part of jungle, he's like, you cannot offer me anything because you don't have anything. You stole everything you have. You stole from the humanity. So, go fuck yourself. And it's interesting how one of the protagonists essentially is in a very sort of commodity mindset, like everything is bought and sold. Everything has a price. Everything has, which, it's true. Everything has labor put into it, but the money itself is not the end goal, or not the sort of the ultimate, or not the most objective way of materializing this price out of stuff that people do. And I find it's also interesting, like, where are we getting at with this character? Because this character is very much about the commodity, like the personal property and all of that.
Which is also funny because, okay, maybe they did steal things, but at the same time, he also doesn't own much because he didn't do it himself.
That's the thing. The fact that he paid for the car that he drives doesn't necessarily mean he didn't create the car. Like there's self-sustainability to the point, right? Because he still very much reliant on other people to provide means for him to also thrive and sustain himself. He's not acting like a libertarian necessarily. He's just trying to survive in this situation. He sees the situation in a very specific way, and that's how he's responding to it. But I find it interesting, this monetary aspect of it, specifically monetary aspect. How, again, I don't know if this is the parallel that the show is drawing here, but I see these hive mind pluribians, pluribuddies, pluribusts that do basically do communism in how they distribute resources, right? And this guy is very much about like, no, we money bought and sold transactionally. This isn't mine. This isn't like.
Where do you think it's going?
I don't know, because the show pokes fun at the militant individualism as well. Right? As the supermarket situation, when you have Carol who's like, I'm gonna feed myself. She doesn't sound like that, but and then goes to supermarket, and you see that she's very much dependent on this. Manussos at one point also like has to either die or involuntarily get help from the hive mind. And there are themes that sort of people are noticing online. There might be a critique of cult behavior. Hive mind, yes, it's very friendly and it's very sort of helping, but also, they did violate 7 billion people in order to spread the virus. They did not consent to become part of the hive mind and lose their individuality. But also, at one point, you see there's like a side story, a cold open with one of other survivors who are not part of the hive mind yet, like in a faraway, remote area.
Okay.
And you see that the survivor gave in, and they're like, okay, I'm gonna become part of you. And they developed a way for her to join this. Like they developed a strain of virus that was personified to her, and she became part of hive mind. And you can see how she had like a favorite goat, like a small baby goat. And as soon as she joins the hive mind, she just lets the goat go and just, blissfully follows the rest. They pick the things and just go somewhere off screen. And the goat is puzzled. He tries to follow, and she's totally unresponsive. She's like blissfully just going somewhere. And this shows like a very cultish like type of behavior when you're leaving your prior connections, you're leaving your and you're joining this sort of enclosed, unknowable thing, because unless you're part of the hive mind, you don't know how it is to be part of the hive mind, right? They say it's blissful and wonderful, but we don't know for sure. They did a lot of good things in terms of stopping wars or adjusting the economy, but it's still this unknowable Cthulhu-like force, you know what I mean?
It's interesting that on one hand there's this typical, but at what cost? And at the same time, as far as I understand, the show does not show much of what these people, the hive mind, actually do at the spare time. Like, how do they function?
Yeah, exactly. They do something. They do some labor somewhere. They help each other because there's still accidents, right? There's no active violence, but there's still accidents. One of the people in the hive mind tripped and fell on a spiky fence somewhere. And everyone in the hive mind knows that. And so the closest people that are still left, they're helping this person out. So they're doing something, and I think it's part of the mystery. And some people online I saw called it a mystery box show. So we don't know where this is going exactly, and there's speculation. And it's it's a weekly show, and it's there to drive discussion online. At certain point, like my theory is that the hive mind, because it's a virus, it was transmitted from far, from the stars. My theory is that it might be a way to disarm a species or a civilization for someone else to come in and conquer them, because they're very welcoming. They give you everything that you ask for. At one point, Carol asked for a live grenade, and they just give her it. Like, they could bring you. She's like, "What if I ask for an atom bomb? Would you bring me an atom bomb?" They were like, "We wouldn't like it, but we have no other choice." So, to me, it also feels like it might be like a three-body problem kind of scenario, where these are actually here to prepare Earth for conquering by someone else. Potentially. I don't know. It might be a bit schlocky, you know what I mean? If they introduce another alien species at some point and they need to render the aliens in CGI. Like, I don't feel like Vince Gilligan is going to go there. But we'll see. I don't know. Like you said, you mentioned, right? There is also a risk of the show ending with the thesis, yes, good things are possible, but at what cost? At cost of losing our humanity, individuality. Why am I talking like Saw Gerrera?
Yeah.
Lost, all of them, lost. Which would be sad to me, because I feel like it would be a regression to a 1950s Body Snatchers understanding of what collectivism actually is. Because funnily enough, whether we're talking about System Shock 2 or Pluribus or Body Snatchers themselves, the movie, I mean, these are all products of collective effort. These are people coming together, sharing ideas in order to, create something that wasn't there before. And I think this dismissal of, oh no, I'm my own person, is kind of shallow. It's kind of...
Especially in the times like this.
Exactly. We have situation, if we talk about like real world for a second, it feels like working class really needs to unite itself in order to be heard, in order to negotiate better future for itself, or fight for a better future for itself. Unity across races, cultures, locations is as important as ever in order to finish the blood. There are like several active wars and a genocide happening.
Yeah.
Several genocides at the same time right now in 2025. Like, looking at all of that, the proposition of, well, yeah, we have something that just snaps the fingers and ends of wars looks super incredibly attractive. And using this just as a background plot point feels to me, I don't know how it is. Is it interesting in and of itself? I don't think it is, to be honest. But if you're interrogating these ideas, are you looking deep enough? It might be, well, whether it's going to be philosophically satisfying, I don't know. But also, why would you want to create art in 2025 that questions the need for people's unity?
Agreed. I think that's a great place to wrap it up for today.
Sure.
And we're gonna see you in the next episode.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider supporting our project on Patreon at patreon.com/BORZOIcast, where you can enjoy ad-free episodes and bonus content. That's patreon.com/BORZOIcast.